Today we are talking about midpoint. Midpoint is one of our vocabulary terms that simply means the point in the middle, midpoint. So I will show you a couple of different ways to find midpoint, and we're also going to look at one midpoint on a line that's completely horizontal and midpoint on a diagonal line. So let's start with the horizontal line. Okay. So on my horizontal line, move this point over. I want to find the midpoint between points A and B. So to find midpoint, it's in the middle. So first we're interested in how far apart are A and B. From A to B, they are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20 units apart. Midpoint is in the middle. When we say middle, that's the half. So what we do is 20. We cut it in half, divided by 2 to get 10. 10 is not my answer. My answer is, from A, I need to count over 10 units. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. And there you have your midpoint. Because this is exactly in the middle, if I have 10 units on the left, what this means is I should also have 10 units on the right. Okay. These two sides are the exact same length. We say they're congruent, and one of our symbols for congruent on a diagram is you will see something like this. You have those tick marks that tell you those sides are supposed to be congruent. So midpoint creates two congruent sides. Okay? Next, this time we have a slanted line, a diagonal line. And as I keep telling everyone, we cannot count diagonal lines. So, to find midpoint, what we can do is, this goes back to our triangles. We can go ahead and draw a triangle. And the reason we want to draw a right triangle is because while we cannot count diagonal lines, we can count left and right, and we can count up and down. So from this point, let's go ahead and call this C, and up here D. From point C, how far to the right did I move? I moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 units right. And I moved 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units up. Now midpoint. As I said, midpoint is half of the way. Halfway. So, halfway, let's think about that. I want to take half of 10. 10 divided by 2, which is 5. And I want to take half of 6. 6 divided by 2 is 3. What 5 and 3 tell me is, to find my midpoint, from my starting point C, I now move those halfway values. I move over 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then I go up 1, 2, 3. And there it exactly is your midpoint. Okay. Now, just like with the distance formula, what if my numbers are too big for me to count? What can we do then? And there is a way to solve that. So we also have a midpoint formula. The midpoint formula goes x1 plus x2 divided by 2. That gives your x value, comma, because it's an ordered pair, it's a coordinate, y1 plus y2 divided by 2. And let me talk about this equation for a moment. x1 plus x2 and y1 plus y2, and they're both being divided by 2. The way I explain this is what this stands for. Let's talk grades. Let's say grades. Let's say your first test, your test 1, you got an 80, and your second test, you got a 100. So if you have an 80 and a 100, what is your grade in the class? Your grade in the class will be whatever's down right the middle of 80 and 100, which is 90. And another way we call our grade in the class is our average. So the midpoint is an average. 90 is the middle of 80 and 100. 90 is the average of 80 and 100. And the way we solve for average is we add up all the numbers, in this case 80 plus 100, and divide by however many numbers we added. We added 2 numbers, so I'm dividing by 2. And real quick, a calculator check. There is a way to type fractions in the calculator. Let me clear this out. To type fractions in, you go alpha, y equals. It's going to be the first option, number 1. That gives you a fraction box. On top, I have 80 plus 100. At the bottom, divide by 2. Reason I'm showing you this fraction box is because we are going to work with a lot of fractions in our next lesson, which is fractional distance. Alright, so there's my midpoint formula. So what if, and I'm just going to make ordered pairs up here off the top of my head. What if my first point is a 3, 20, and my second point is a negative 17, negative 4. And I'm asked to find the midpoint. Find the midpoint. So this is an example of my numbers are too big for me to count on a graph. You can try, but it's going to take some time. So now let's use the formula. First I'll solve the x side. It tells me I add the two x values, x1 which is 3 and x2 which is negative 17. So that becomes a 3 plus the negative 17. When you are typing this in the calculator, make sure that you pay close attention to those signs. So here we go. Alpha y equals, for my fraction, 3 plus negative buttons over here. Please, please, please do not confuse it with minus. Minus, negative. So I have a 3 plus a negative 17 on top, divided by 2. So on the x side, I have a negative 7. Let's do the same for the y. 20 plus negative 4 divided by 2, which is 20 plus 4 on plus negative 4 on top gets me 16. 16 divided by 2 gets me 8. So my midpoint is at negative 7, 8. So this is one way of finding midpoint, the formula way. The other way of finding midpoint is the counting method. In my previous example, I went right 10 up 6, so midpoint is halfway. Instead of 10, I go right 5. Instead of 6, I go up 3. So next, let me do a different example. You may also see a question where they give you the endpoint and the midpoint, and they're asking to find where is the other endpoint. For example, here's A, and I'm just making stuff up here. Here's M, here's A, and here's M, and it's going to read that A is one of our endpoints, M is the midpoint. Where is B, the other endpoint? Now, will B be down here or up there? Down here, up there, the other end. Hopefully most of you can see it, that B is supposed to be up here because M is in the middle, so B has to be on the other side of M. Now, on the graph, there's a counting method for this. So, from A to M, let's go ahead and count how far we went over and how far we went up. We went 1, 2, 3 over, and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 up. Because M is in the middle, that means over 3, up 5 once, and I'm halfway there. That means I'm still missing the other half. In other words, I need to do it another time. So from M, I go another over 3, 1, 2, 3, and up 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, up 5. And there is my point B. So some of you may kind of connect this with slope. It's similar to that. If you go over 3, up 5 the first time, we are in a straight line, so we should be able to go over 3, up 5 the second time. Remember, midpoint's in the middle, so do it once, you're in the middle, do it a second time to get your other endpoint. That's the counting method, the graphing method of how to find your other endpoint. Now let me talk about a table method. So again, let me erase this, and I'll just make up examples again. Say at this point and that point. Here's A, here's the middle. So what you may see, let me go back, is given that A is at point, let's see, we're at -4, +2, and your midpoint is at 1, 4. Find the other endpoint. Okay. Given that A is at -4, 2 and M is at 1, 4, find the other endpoint. So the other method I'm going to show you is the table method. And most will prefer the table method. Also, when your numbers are way too big to count on the graph, again, table method works for finding the other endpoint. So here we go. Let's put this in an XY table where we have point A is right there, M is in the middle, and we're looking for B, the other point. So A is at -4, 2, M is at 1, 4, and we don't know where B is. Okay? To find B, and let me relate that back to the graph. What we did previously is we count how far did I move to the right, how far did I move up. I move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 to the right, and I move 1, 2 up. So we want to figure out the change in the X and the change in Y. So take a look at this. Going from +2 to +4, how much do I add? You can see that going from 2 to 4, we add a +2. That means to get to my next point, from 4, I need to add +2 to get 6. Similarly, on the other side, from -4 to +1, how much do I add? we see that we add plus 5. That means from 1 to my next point, I need to add plus 5 again. 1 plus 5 to get me 6. And let's compare. I move over 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and up 2. There's my point, which is at 6, which is at 6, comma 6. Okay. So this table method should look familiar. In Algebra 1, you talked about delta x, delta y, change in x, change in y. You use this table mostly when you're finding slope. So we need to figure out, going from 2 to 4, how much did we add? From negative 4 to 1, how much did we add? If those numbers are too large that you can't think off the top of your head that we added 5, negative 4 plus 5 to get 1, you can go back to our distance between 2 points. How far is negative 4 from 1? So to find that, that's where we do our second point, 1 minus the first point, negative 4, to get that 5. So this tells me we're moving 5 units. Alright, so key things for midpoint. 1, if you have 2 endpoints, that means this end and this end, you can use the formula to find the midpoint. I would suggest to use the formula. If what you have is one endpoint and the midpoint, then you're being asked to find the other endpoint. I would suggest that you use the table method or the graphing method. The formula method, there is a way to solve this type of question, endpoint and midpoint, using the formula. But that involves more algebra than you would like. And in the interest of time, I would go ahead and recommend use the table, or if there's a graph, use the graph.